Alright, Earthlings, I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
1, 2, 3, wow! Make it, move! Make it, squirt, sugar, jam, brown sugar, she good, make some move! Make it, wow, check it! Spoilers!
I'm doing a recap of all the Cowboy Bebop episodes leading up to the Netflix live-action release. There are 2 bounty hunters named Spike and Jet, and they have to catch this drug dealer, and then his wife's pregnant, but not really, she just has drugs, and then they die. But in this world, bounty hunters are called cowboys. Session 2, Stray Dog Strut. Spike is after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who has a cute little dog in a suitcase. It's a corgi, it's a data dog, it's Ein! And then Ein goes to live on the Bebop. Session 3, Honky Tonk Women. In this episode, Spike meets Funny Valentine at a space casino, and then he eats a poker chip. There's a case of mistaken identity, and then Spike goes on a spacewalk. Session 4, Gateway Shuffle. There's this creepy lady who has sons who dress up as rats, and she has a virus that turns people into monkeys that she tries to release, but then she gets turned into a monkey, and then Faye goes to live on the Bebop. Session 5, Ballad of Fallen Angels. Wow, what an episode! We meet Vicious, who has this epic, iconic showdown with Spike in a cathedral, while Jet is pruning his bonsai trees. And we get to see some memories of Julia. Session 6, Sympathy for the Devil. There's this creepy kid who's not a kid, and he plays the blues on his harmonica. Spike shoots him in the forehead with a gem, and he immediately turns into an old man and dies. And then Spike takes his harmonica. Session 7, Heavy Metal Queen. Spike and Faye are chasing Woody Allen, and both their ships get busted. And they meet this space trucker called VT, but no one knows her real name, and she has a cat named Zeros. And there's lots of explosions and blowing things up. Session 8, Waltz for Venus. The episode opens with Spike and Faye finally bringing in some bounties named Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Spike teaches this guy named Rocco some Bruce Lee moves. Rocco stole this flower that he needs for his sister who's blind, but then he dies. But then his sister gets her medicine. Session 9, Jamming with Edward. A satellite draws some Nazca lines and they have to find the hacker who did it. But Edward finds out it wasn't a hacker, the satellite was just lonely. But everyone thinks it was Radical Edward! And then Ed goes to live on the Bebop. Session 10, Ganymede Elegy. Bebop goes to Ganymede to drop off a bounty, and Jet visits an old flame, Elisa. But Elisa's boyfriend, Rint, has a bounty on his head. Jet chases them down, and Elisa explains why she left him, and Jet has to turn in Rint. Session 11, Toys in the Attic. A mysterious space creature bites Jet, then it bites Faye, then it bites Ein. And Spike realizes it must be old food he left in the refrigerator for a year, so he ejects the refrigerator out into space and gets bit. And then Ed eats the monster. Sessions 12 and 13, Jupiter Jazz. Faye runs away from the Bebop to Callisto. Spike goes to Callisto looking for Julia. Some really cool fight scenes. All their paths cross with a sax player named Gren who tries to kill Vicious. Gren dies and everyone goes back to the Bebop. Session 14, Bohemian Rhapsody. Spike, Faye, and Jet are trying to find the criminal mastermind. And it turns out to be the person Ed is playing chess with, Chessmaster Hex. But at this point, he's just a senile old man. And then after a week, he beats Ed in chess and dies. Session 15, My Funny Valentine. We get Faye's backstory. She was cryogenically frozen for 54 years and doesn't know who she is. And she has a lot of money now. And her lawyer seems really nice to her, but then he dies and she inherits his debt. But it turns out he didn't die, he was just a scammer with a really small bounty. Session 16, Black Dog Serenade. It's Con Air in space. Some prisoners hijack a prison ship. One of the prisoners named Uday was responsible for Jet losing his arm. So Jet and his former partner Fad go after him. But it turns out it was actually Fad who shot Jet's arm off. Fad shoots Uday and Jet shoots Fad. Session 17, Mushroom Samba. The Bebop runs out of food and fuel and crashes on a desert planet. Ed goes out to find food and find some magic mushrooms. Faye, Jet, and Spike all eat the mushrooms. Ed goes after the mushroom hunter because he has a bounty, but he tricks her and she just gets more mushrooms. Session 18, Speak Like a Child. Faye gets an Amazon delivery, but it's COD, so she runs away. It's a beta cassette tape? Spike and Jet go to Earth to find a beta player, but they come back with a VCR. But there's another delivery for Faye and it's a beta player. It's her teenage self sending her a message. Session 19, Wild Horses. Jet and Faye are after some space pirates, while Spike is getting the swordfish repaired by James Doohan. But the pirates upload a virus to the Bebop. Spike goes after them, but then he's plummeting towards Earth. Then James Doohan rescues him in a space shuttle. Session 20, Pierrot le Fou. Spike gets super beat up by this crazy killer called Mad Pierrot. Then he gets invited to go to Spaceland for a rematch. And it turns out Mad Pierrot has superhuman abilities but the mind of a child. Spike throws a knife at his leg and then he gets run over by a parade. Session 21, Boogie Woogie Feng Shui. Jet gets a mysterious message from Feng Shui Master Pao, but it turns out he's dead. Jet meets his daughter Mayfa and together they find the Sunstone. And it turns out Pao's not dead, so Jet and Mayfa use the Sunstone to find him, but then he dies for real. Session 22, Cowboy Funk. Spike's Spike's after the teddy bomber who blows buildings up with teddy bears. But this cowboy Andy who rides a horse keeps getting in the way. They have a showdown on top of a blown up building. Spike punches something and Andy says Spike is the real cowboy and retires. Session 23, Brain Scratch. Team Bebop is after the cult leader Londis. Faye infiltrates the cult and gets knocked out. Ein hacks the network and finds out that Londis is a fake person. It turns out he's actually a boy in a coma. Ed disconnects him from the network and wishes him sweet dreams. We interrupt your regularly scheduled Cowboy Bebop recap to bring you a special Halloween episode. The Cowboy Bebop movie Knockin' on Heaven's Door takes place on Halloween. There's a bad guy named Vincent that wants everyone to see butterflies. Ed and Ann go trick-or-treating. Spike and Electra go after Vincent. Session 24, Hard Luck Woman. Faye and Ed go looking for Faye's past on Earth. Ed finds out that her dad's looking for her. Faye meets an old high school friend who's an old lady now. Faye remembers her old life and goes and finds her old house. Ed and Ein decide to go live with Ed's dad. Only Spike and Jet are left. Sessions 25 and 26, The Real Folk Blues. Faye comes back to deliver a message from Julia. Vicious takes over the syndicate. Spike finally reunites with Julia, but then the syndicate kills her. Spike goes to the syndicate headquarters and kills Vicious. But then he dies too. You're gonna carry that weight.
1, 2, 3, wow!